For whatever reason, it's actually surprisingly difficult to get a decent smart wall socket here in the UK. We're absolutely flooded with different smart plugs, but let's be honest, most of the time these plugs are just big and bulky and not really practical for all real world setups. Don't get me wrong though, there is definitely a time and a place for a smart plug if you're making use of like a quick setup where you want to just give some simple smarts to something, or maybe you've got a portable setup where you want to just quickly add a plug and then take it away. That kind of thing is really useful to have a smart plug, but for me personally, if it's something that's going to be a permanent feature, then I'd much rather have a smart wall outlet. In my own smart home setup, I make use of some of these, which are the Aurora ones. They're Zigbee based, they've got individual socket control, and they've also got some other cool features like energy monitoring, and right up until now, these would actually also be the sockets that I recommend you go out and get without any kind of hesitation. Until now, that is. Aqara have finally released their first UK smart wall outlet, and it's called the H2 outlet. The H2 is a twin socket, and it comes in either a single USB-C or a dual USB-C configuration. The ones that we're going to be looking at today are the dual USB-C version, and Aqara actually kindly sent me a few of these to just test out and have a play with, so thank you for that, Aqara. You can pick up the H2 outlet over at Amazon or directly from the Aqara UK store, and at the time of recording this video they cost a whopping £70, but we'll come back to that a little later on in the video. In terms of platform support, this thing supports everything right out of the box, so you've got things like Home Assistant, Apple Home, Google Home, Amazon Echo, Samsung SmartThings, if this then that, if you're somebody that still uses that, so pretty much just all of the major popular platforms. Connectivity wise, this thing also supports a bunch of different things, so it supports Zigbee, it supports Thread, it supports Matter, and it's also got Bluetooth for some of the connectivity stuff, so already that puts it in a very interesting position. Now, where things start to get genuinely quite clever and quite interesting is what Aqara have actually done with the firmware. So obviously they've given us all of these different protocols, but in the real world you're never going to be using all of these protocols all at the same time. So what Aqara have actually done here is they've provided dual protocol support. What this then means for people like me and you is when we actually set up these sockets, we've got the choice of either setting the socket up as a Thread and Matter device, or we can choose to have it as a Zigbee device. If you're opting to make use of that Zigbee device, you also have Matter access if you make use of a supported Matter bridge, and some of the Aqara supported ones are things like the Aqara M2 hub and also the Aqara M3 hub. I actually really quite like this concept of having that dual firmware. For you as an end user, you actually get to test out both versions, so you can pick one that works best for your home. And I guess for Aqara, it also works really well because for them, they just get to make one device and then they load it up with all of the things and then the user just picks what they want. Before we start diving into all of the different features and specs then, let's just quickly take a look at what you get inside of the box. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Inside the box, you get a 10mm plastic spacer, which you can use if you're fitting the socket into a shallower back box. You obviously also get the H2 socket itself, along with some fixing screws and the quick start guide. On the front of the device, you'll find the dual USB-C ports, the UK 3-pin sockets, and the physical buttons. Around the back then, you've got the live, neutral and earth terminals, and that's pretty much it. This socket is rated at 13 amps and it will fit into standard 35mm back boxes, or if you've got 25mm back boxes, you can fit it using that included spacer. The setup and install of the H2 isn't quite plug and play, and that's just because you need to remove an existing dual socket and wire a new one in. If you're happy and competent with doing some basic electrical work, then you can have everything swapped over in about 10 minutes, and if you're not, then just get a Sparky in and it'll be a quick 5-minute job for them, and at least you'll know that it's been done safely and properly. In order to actually fit the socket, you'll first need to pop off the faceplate, and this is done by just inserting something into the 2 tabs in either corner. I'm not sure if Aqara plan on actually selling any alternative faceplates, but that'd be cool to see. It'd also be cool if they released the STL file so that we could actually print our own faceplates. Once that's all wired in, just turn the power back on and then your socket will start flashing. You can then open up the Aqara app and tap add a device, and it should automatically discover the new outlet and you can run through the whole setup process. The setup process basically just consists of you choosing a firmware version that you want. I've tested out both the Matter and Zigbee setups, and for my own system I'm going to be sticking with Zigbee. I'll come back to why in just a second, but once you've actually chosen the firmware that you want, it will start loading onto the device, and this does take a few minutes. Once that completes, you'll then be greeted with the standard Aqara stuff, where you give the device a name, you choose what cards you want to display, and you're pretty much good to go. You can now start making use of the main device features, which includes things like remotely controlling each of the sockets. You can set timers for when the sockets are going to turn on and off and have a little schedule. You can view a full button activity log, which will show you any time that the buttons have been pressed and also how they were pressed. You can also check the power consumption graphs, and these graphs include things for the current usage, for how much energy is being used at that point. You've got a monthly usage, and also you've got a daily usage. As well as being able to individually control either of the sockets, you've also got a control to actually turn on and off the USB-C power, which is handy, especially if you want to be able to enable or disable charging through the USB-C. One thing that's worth pointing out with the USB-C is you can't actually view the power usage for an individual USB-C port. You also can't view it for the dual ones. So the actual power consumption gets combined with the left-hand socket. So when you've got stuff on the USB-C and also the socket, the power usage is going to be combined. So that total power usage is just all in one. The same thing applies with a single USB-C version, so again with that one, whatever the power usage that USB-C is using, that gets added to that first left-hand socket. It would be really nice if the power usage for the USB-C and the socket were separated, but that's currently how it's implemented. I don't know if this can be changed with firmware or if it's kind of like a hardware limitation, but that's how it is currently. With the dual USB-C version, you get 30 watts, which is shared across both ports. So if you've got something plugged into one port that's using 30 watts, then the other port isn't going to work. Otherwise, it's just split between them. If you go for the single USB-C version, then that port is actually rated at 20 watts. So those are kind of your main core features, and both versions of the firmware both have these. There is a slight difference between the two of them, so with the Matter one, although it does have those same controls, it doesn't have a control for the USB-C, and it also doesn't have those same power graphs that you have with the Zigbee version. I think with the Matter one, you only get a one kind of graph, so there is still a difference between them. The biggest difference, however, between the two versions is with the Zigbee version, you actually get access to way more features. There is a whole bunch of different features that are in the Zigbee version. I'm not going to run through all of them, but some of the kind of main standout ones are things like a child lock. So with a child lock, you can choose to disable the physical buttons on the device. This will just stop the device being turned on or off by small humans. You can also do things like setting a maximum power limit, and you can set this limit anywhere from 100 watts right up to 3250 watts. In the Zigbee version, you're also able to set the power on memory, so if the device gets cut off from power, there's a power cut, or maybe you turn the power off to install more of them, then it will actually remember whatever the last power state was, and this is configurable, so you can have it either turn on when it regains power, you can have it stay off, or you can have it reverse, so it does the opposite to what it was previously doing. There's also a few other really interesting ones. You've got things like being able to control the lights of the actual LEDs, you can turn these on and off. You can use Find Device, which makes identifying an individual socket really easy. And I actually found this one to be a lifesaver when I installed these in the workshop, because I did loads of them all at once and it was just really handy to find the socket that I was trying to add or use. Probably one of the more interesting features that the Zigbee firmware has is the ability to change the button's functionality. By default, your button is set into a single press mode, so this is going to do what you'd expect. Pressing the button is going to turn the socket on and off, but if you enable the multifunction mode, you gain access to being able to make use of a single press, a double press, and also a long press. Using any of these press actions will actually allow you to use the device as a trigger, so you gain more functionality and you can use the device to trigger more kinds of automations. If you're making use of the Matter setup, you can do things like adding the device to Apple Home, and you're also going to get all of those Matter and Thread interconnectivity benefits. The main trade-off here though is you're going to lose 90% of those additional features and functionality that you get by making use of the Aqara app and the Zigbee firmware. At the time of recording this video, the whole Matter setup is very limited and obviously you don't have all of those features. I don't know if this is going to change as Matter's more adopted and features get pushed out, but that's just how it is currently. Let's talk Home Assistant then. Using Home Assistant, you can add these sockets directly to it in a couple of different ways. You can make use of the HomeKit controller, you can make use of Matter, and you can also make use of Zigbee. And if you're making use of one of the Aqara hubs, you can also use the Zigbee hub bridge. So using Matter, you can have the devices go from your Aqara hub directly into Home Assistant. So using Home Assistant, you've got lots of different access and lots of different methods you can use. Just like with the Aqara app, depending on the firmware that you've installed on the H2 is going to dictate what kind of controls and access that you have. So again, if you're using the Matter version, you're going to have less features and functionality inside of Home Assistant. So if you want full access to all of the device controls and all of the functionality, then I'd opt to make use of the Zigbee setup. For me, the way that I've actually been controlling and using all of my sockets is using Home Assistant with Zigbee to MQTT. So I've got the Zigbee firmware flashed onto the device, and then using Zigbee to MQTT, you can just choose to add a device and it will add like any other device. With the H2 added to Home Assistant, you'll have access to both socket switches and also a switch for the USB-C power control. You'll also have a full set of sensors, including the current, the energy, the combined power for both sockets, and also an individual power reading per socket. Just remember that if you're making use of the USB-C port, then the power draw that this has gets combined with that first socket, so it'll be the left-hand one, whatever you've named it in your setup. Inside Home Assistant, you can also gain access to all of the individual configuration options that I previously mentioned, along with a few optional diagnostic sensors. And because it's Home Assistant and you've got access to all of these controls and sensors, you can of course just start incorporating them and using them within your various scripts and automations. So let's wrap this up then, and we'll go through some of the things that I like and don't like with the H2, and we'll start with the things that I don't like. First and most obviously is the price. This thing costs £70, and I think that's going to be a massive turn off for a lot of people. When the H2 was initially announced and shown off, I think a lot of people actually thought it was going to be around £40–45, so having a £70 price tag just seems insane. A lot of sockets that are currently on the market are much lower, and yes, they don't have the same feature set or functionality, but if you're somebody that only wants just Zigbee and you don't care about things like the USB-C or don't care about some of the other functionality, it's a lot, but then I guess that this isn't aimed at you if you don't care about those features. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts and feelings are about this price. Is £70 way too much for a socket, or do you think it's justifiable for what you're getting? Let me know, just what would you be happy paying for this? My final gripe with this plug is the mechanism for actually taking the faceplate off. So when you don't have the socket installed, it's quite easy to just get something in under the gap and just pop the tabs and take the faceplate off. But when you've actually got them on the wall, you don't have much space to actually get something in there. And if you install them like I did, where you install them onto some wall paneling and then decide you want to put spacers on all of them just to make everything nice and flush, then you're going to run into this issue. Fitting something underneath and popping them off when they're on the wall does seem to be really hard. The actual mechanism is very tough, and I didn't want to scratch or damage any of them. This doesn't really affect any of the kind of form or functionality of the device. It's more just a difficulty that I had with actually installing them. Realistically, I should have just put the spacers on first rather than being a dum-dum, but I actually forgot when I was doing it, so yeah, I just had to do them all again. So don't be a dum-dum. On to the things that I do like then. First up, I really like that when you're making use of the Zigbee firmware and you combine it with Home Assistant, you get access to all of the features and functionality. With some Aqara devices, if you're not making use of the Aqara app, then you end up missing out on certain features, but that's not the case here and you get access to everything, so that's a big win. Another thing that I really like is the addition of the actions that you can assign to the physical switches. So this is a really small thing, but it's nice that they thought about it. They've given you a button and then they've optionally given you the ability to make use of additional triggers. So if you want to use that button to do some kind of secret automation or just use the buttons to just quickly trigger things, then you can do that. But there we go guys, that's been a quick look at the Aqara H2. If you have enjoyed this video and found it interesting, then don't forget to drop me a like, and if you aren't already, hit that subscribe button and ding dong the notification bell, and you'll be alerted to any future video that I do. As always, a massive thank you to these awesome dudes. These awesome dudes are my Patreons and also my YouTube members, and if you are interested in helping support my channel, which in turn allows me to create content like this, then you'll find links to all the places that you can go to support me, all in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.